Think about the last time your bread went moldy. Not stale, not dry, but actually moldy, the kind of green and gray that tells you something living was in that loaf and ran out of time. If you can't remember, that's the answer. Real bread molds in 3 to 4 days because nothing is stopping it from behaving like food. The loaf in your pantry that's been sitting there for 2 weeks without a spot of mold isn't fresh. It's been chemically persuaded to look fresh long after it stopped being food. I'm exposing 7 bread brands engineered for shelf life instead of your life, and 3 that still behave like bread is supposed to behave. Subscribe. Let's squeeze the loaf. Pick up the loaf in your pantry right now. Pull out a slice. Press your finger into the center. Real bread has a gluten structure, actual protein networks built through real fermentation that resist pressure and spring back when you release. Press your finger into a slice of genuine sourdough and it pushes back. Press your finger into a slice of Wonderbread and it compresses completely. Your fingerprint stays there. The bread doesn't spring back because there's no gluten structure doing that work. There's a chemical system that manufactured the appearance of softness without the structure underneath. The dent is the answer. The bread that holds your fingerprint was built for shipping, not eating, and the one that springs back was built for the person holding it. Wonderbread has been on American tables since 1921, and it has survived everything the 20th century threw at it. The Depression, 2 world wars, the rise of whole wheat, the clean eating movement, not because it got better, but because the name became the thing. Wonderbread isn't a product anymore. It's a memory, and the corporations that have owned it for the last 20 years understood that a memory doesn't need to be improved. It just needs to be kept alive long enough to keep selling. What keeps the bread soft is azodicarbonamide, a synthetic chemical the FDA approved as a dough conditioner in 1962. In industrial applications, it's used as a foaming agent in the production of yoga mats and shoe soles. It creates tiny gas bubbles in polymer plastic, giving the material its light, spongy, malleable quality. In Wonderbread, it does the same job on dough, conditioning it to achieve softness and volume without the hours of real fermentation that used to create those properties naturally. The European Union banned it from food in the 1990s. Australia followed. The FDA still permits it in the United States at up to 45 parts per million. And Wonderbread still uses it. What makes yoga mat material flexible is what makes Wonderbread compress completely under a finger and hold the dent. During baking, azodicarbonamide breaks down into semicarbazide, a compound that at high concentrations increased tumor incidence in female mice in documented studies. The FDA reviewed those findings and concluded the exposure level from bread consumption is below the threshold of concern. The European Union reached the opposite conclusion and banned it anyway. The person who presses their finger into a Wonderbread slice and watches the dent hold is pressing their fingerprint into a product containing a chemical the EU decided shouldn't be in food. None of this is hidden. Azodicarbonamide must be listed on the ingredient label by law. It's there and it has always been there. Wonderbread survived on the assumption that nobody was reading it. Flowers Foods is a Georgia baking company founded in 1919. A century of baking that makes it one of the oldest and largest bread producers in America. You may not know the name, but you know every brand they own. Wonderbread, Tasty Cake, and Nature's Own. The best-selling bread in America by dollar volume. The loaf that outsells every other packaged bread on the shelf. The product that built Flowers Foods into a $4 billion company. Nature's Own honey wheat is the specific betrayal. Every word in that name is working hard to make you feel like you've made a responsible choice. Honey, wheat, Nature's Own. The honey on the label is real. It appears in the ingredient list, it just appears so far down that it's functionally decoration. The dominant sweetener is high fructose corn syrup, which shows up well before honey. The wheat germ and bran that would make this bread genuinely nutritious. The parts of the grain that carry the fiber, the minerals, the actual reason wheat is good for you, have been processed out. What's left is enriched wheat flour, which means refined white flour with synthetic vitamins added back after processing removed the ones that were naturally there. The person who reached past Wonderbread because the blue label looked more responsible than the red and yellow one is still in the Flowers food system. Different packaging, different name, same corporation collecting the margin. Dave Dahl grew up in his family's Oregon bakery and spent 15 years in prison on drug and burglary charges. When he came out, he went back to the bakery and started making bread the way he thought bread should be made. Organic whole grains, seeds, no high fructose corn syrup, no artificial preservatives. The prison reform story wasn't a marketing decision, it was the actual story. And the bread was actually different from everything on the shelf next to it. By 2015, Dave's Killer Bread was the best-selling organic bread in America, growing at a rate that made it one of the most valuable food brands in the country. That's when Flowers Foods bought it for $275 million. The same Flowers Foods that makes Wonderbread, the same Flowers Foods that makes Nature's Own. The company that built its business on the industrial bread system that Dave's Killer Bread was specifically positioned against paid $275 million for the brand that was beating it, and then used its national distribution network to put Dave's Killer Bread in every grocery store in America. This one hurts us deeply because we have been buying the Dave's Double Loaf from Costco for years. Luckily, the ingredient list hasn't dramatically changed. Dave's Killer Bread still uses organic grains and still avoids high fructose corn syrup. But the person who switched from Wonderbread to Dave's Killer Bread specifically to escape the industrial bread system is buying from the same corporation they were trying to leave. The escape route costs $6 a loaf. Flowers Foods owns it. They priced it, they packaged it, and they put it on the shelf next to the bread it was supposed to replace. Dave built the exit. Flowers Foods bought it and started charging admission. Campbell's Soup Company, the corporation that also owns Pace Salsa and V8 Juice, acquired Pepperidge Farm in 1961 for $28 million. That was 60 years ago. The founder, Margaret Rudkin, had built Pepperidge Farm in her Connecticut farmhouse kitchen in 1937, baking bread without artificial ingredients for her son who had severe allergies. She believed real ingredients produced better results, and she was right. The brand she built on that belief is now managed by a corporation whose primary competency is operating a $9 billion packaged food portfolio at industrial scale. Pepperidge Farm Farmhouse Hearty White costs $4 to $5 and presents itself as a step up from commodity bread. Thicker slices, earthy packaging, a font designed to suggest something pastoral and handmade. The ingredient list tells a different story. Sugar second, soybean oil third, then the dough conditioners, monoglycerides, Day-Tem, sodium stearoyl lactylate, the same chemical shortcuts that eliminate real fermentation time in favor of factory speed. Day-Tem stands for diacetyl tartaric acid esters of mono and diglycerides. It's a synthetic emulsifier that does in seconds what slow fermentation used to do in hours. Every bread that uses it is telling you the manufacturer chose throughput over process. The word farmhouse is on the label because Margaret Rudkin built something in a farmhouse kitchen that deserved the name. What Campbell's sells today in that name is an industrial product at a premium price. You're paying for the story. The bread underneath it was built for a factory. Artesano is the Spanish word for artisan. Sara Lee is owned by Grupo Bimbo, the Mexican baking conglomerate that is the largest bread company in the world, with operations in 34 countries and over $16 billion in annual sales. The largest bread corporation on earth named its American premium loaf after the Spanish word for handcrafted. That's an oxymoron if I've ever heard one. The FDA has no definition for artisan as applied to bread, which means nobody had to stop them. A corporation can print artisan, artesano, farmhouse, hearth-baked, handcrafted, or stone-milled on any commercially produced bread loaf in America, and the only requirement is that a marketing team decided it sounded good. There are no standards. There is no audit. There is no one checking. Sara Lee Artesano runs enriched wheat flour. refined white flour with synthetic vitamins replacing the ones processing removed. It runs soybean oil, extracted with hexane solvents, the same industrial solvent used in cleaning products. It has a smooth, uniform crumb that holds a fingerprint because the dough conditioner system that built it was optimized for packaging consistency rather than real gluten development. Press your finger in. The dent holds. The word artisano does the work of making you feel like someone made a decision about your specific loaf. Nobody did. A machine in a commercial bakery made it, at volume, with an ingredient list designed to survive the supply chain. At $5 a loaf, Sara Lee Artesano charges a premium for a word that means nothing and a crumb that holds your fingerprint. Arnold bread is sold as brownberry in the Midwest and Oro wheat in the West. It has constructed an identity out of sounding like something that came from somewhere specific: the country, filling, hearty. The packaging suggests craft. The pricing, often $5 and above, confirms the suggestion. Arnold Country White earns a top spot on this list because it charges you the most to deceive you the hardest. The ingredient list runs sugar second, soybean oil third, then monoglycerides, Daytem, calcium propionate, and sodium stearoyl lactylate. The same industrial dough conditioner stack running through Wonderbread, priced $2 higher. You're paying a premium for packaging that signals quality, while the ingredients underneath it are identical to the bread you were trying to upgrade from. Arnold has done something strategically intelligent with this. They also make genuinely better products, seeded loaves, whole grain options with shorter ingredient lists, and those products sit on the same shelf under the same name. The person who had a good experience with Arnold's better loaves extends that trust to everything with the Arnold name on it. The good products provide cover for the ones that don't deserve the benefit of the doubt. Press your finger into a slice of Arnold Country White. The dent holds. You paid $5 to find that out. The most cynical product in the bread aisle isn't Wonderbread Classic White. The person who buys that knows what they're getting. The most cynical product is Wonderbread 100% whole wheat, the version designed specifically to catch the person who read the label on Classic White and decided to make a better choice. It says 100% whole wheat on the front, but flip it over. Whole wheat flour is first. That's real. Then water, then high fructose corn syrup, then contains 2% or less of a lineup that includes calcium, sulfate, ammonium sulfate, and the same dough conditioner system as the Classic White. The version marketed specifically to health-conscious people who checked the label still runs high fructose corn syrup as the third ingredient. The wheat is real. Everything done to it afterward is the same industrial process as the white bread, with a more expensive front of package claim to justify the extra dollar on the price. Flowers Foods understood that the health-conscious bread buyer and the nostalgia bread buyer are two different purchase occasions. Wonderbread whole wheat exists to collect both. Two different buyers. One corporation, one squeeze test. The dent holds either way. Bread used to have 4 ingredients: flour, water, salt, thyme. The corporations couldn't even leave bread alone. They replaced the thyme with chemistry, dough conditioners, preservatives, and sweeteners. Subscribe and check out the grocery store cheat sheet in the description. It's everything we expose on this channel in one printable guide. Now let's get into the real, honest bread you should be eating. Silver Hills has been making sprouted grain bread in British Columbia since 1989. 35 years of the same process, the same philosophy, and no corporate acquisition rewriting the formula. The grains are soaked until they sprout before being ground into flour, a process that breaks down phytic acid, a natural compound in grain that prevents your body from fully absorbing its minerals. Sprouting does what industrial processing removes. It makes the nutrition in the grain actually available to the body eating it. Silver Hills Big 16 contains 16 types of organic sprouted seeds and grains. It's certified glyphosate-free, meaning the wheat wasn't treated with Roundup, a certification that goes beyond organic because organic certification doesn't specifically test for glyphosate residue. 1 gram of cane sugar per slice from organic fruit juice concentrate. No enriched flour, no soybean oil, no dough conditioners, no preservatives. Press your finger into a slice, it pushes back. The gluten structure built from real sprouted grain does the work, that a synthetic dough conditioner system was trying to approximate for 30 cents less per loaf. Available at Whole Foods, Sprouts, and natural grocery chains nationwide. It costs more than Dave's Killer Bread, but it's not owned by Flowers Foods. Food for Life has been making Ezekiel bread since the 1960s and has never been acquired, never been reformulated to hit a margin target, and never moved the product from the refrigerator section to a shelf. It lives in the refrigerator because nothing in it prevents it from expiring the way real food expires. The ingredient list has no flour in it. Ezekiel is made from 6 sprouted whole grains: wheat, barley, millet, lentils, soybeans, and spelt, ground after germination, rather than from pre-milled industrial flour. No added sugar, no oil, no preservatives, no dough conditioners. Filtered water, fresh yeast, and sea salt complete the list. The combination of sprouted grains and legumes creates a complete protein profile, all 9 essential amino acids, that no enriched white flour product can replicate regardless of how many synthetic vitamins get added back. It doesn't taste like sandwich bread, it tastes like grain, dense, earthy, slightly sweet in the way that fermented food is sweet, with a chew that makes your jaw work. The taste isn't for everyone, and first-time buyers often find it surprising. That's what bread tastes like when it's actually made from something. It goes stale in 3 to 4 days at room temperature because nothing is stopping it from behaving like food. Find it in the freezer section. The fact that it needs cold storage is the proof, not the flaw. Bread Alone is a small bakery in the Hudson Valley of New York that has maintained ingredient integrity while achieving enough distribution to reach major grocery chains. The organic rustic sourdough contains 4 ingredients: organic whole wheat flour, filtered water, sea salt, and sourdough starter culture. That's it. No oil, no sugar, no dough conditioners, no preservatives, no synthetic vitamins added back because nothing was removed. The crumb is irregular, air pockets of different sizes scattered throughout the slice, rather than the uniform, engineered structure of an industrial loaf. That irregularity is the visual proof of real fermentation. Industrial bread has a perfectly uniform crumb because it was manufactured to be uniform. Bread Alone's crumb varied because the fermentation process is alive, and no 2 loaves are exactly alike. Press your finger into a slice. The gluten network built from 60+ hours of natural fermentation resists the pressure and springs back immediately. Real bread pushes back. The dough conditioner system approximating real bread holds the dent. At $6 to $8 depending on the retailer, it's priced like a premium product because it is one. It goes stale in 3 to 4 days. When it does, it doesn't become inedible. It becomes bread for toast, for croutons, for breadcrumbs. It ages like food instead of sitting unchanged on a counter for 2 weeks like a chemistry project. The squeeze test takes 3 seconds. Pull out a slice, press your finger in, watch what happens. If the dent holds, a dough conditioner built that softness, a preservative is keeping it fresh, and an industrial process replaced the fermentation that real bread requires. If it springs back, something structural is doing that work. Real gluten, real fermentation, real time. If you want to guarantee that the bread you eat is in fact quality made with real ingredients, nothing is better than homemade. Try making it yourself. 4 ingredients: flour, water, salt, wild yeast. It'll take you a weekend to learn, and it'll mold in 4 days because nothing you added is stopping it. That's not a flaw. That's the point. The bread that doesn't mold was built for the supply chain. The bread that does was built for you. Comment B2E if you made it to the end. Subscribe to support us and check out the grocery store cheat sheet. In the description, it's everything we expose on this channel in one printable guide. Thanks for watching.